Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nun. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those that are watching live or listening live, and for those that are catching it later, thank you for tuning in and catching up on the show. This is a very special episode. We're so excited to have a very unique and special guest with us, Miss Kelly Kowall. She, as you can see, she is president of My Warriors Place. She is also, sadly, the holds a distinction of being a Gold Star mother. And that kind of is what led to this. We'll talk about that. But I want to welcome Kelly to the show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, no problem. We've talked a little bit beforehand a few times, and I just knew the first time we chatted, I was like, oh, I got to have you on the show because you just have such a great story to tell. So I'm really excited to get right into it tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So let's we'll get right. Obviously this is not something you just stood up one day and said, oh, I'm going to make this place. So there's a story behind it. But first, before we get into to what brought you here, can you kind of give our viewers and listeners a kind of a summary of what My Warriors Place is and what its mission is?
Sure. My Warriors Place is a nonprofit organization with 5 amazing programs, one of them being our retreat center. And we support veterans, active duty, law enforcement, firefighters, both actively serving and those that have gotten out, along with families of the fallen. And the other programs that we have is Operation Solid 7, which is mental health, to help with PTSD, to help with anxiety, depression, and helping them to basically have a better life after getting out of the military, especially after coming back from a combat zone in theater.
And that's called Solid 7?
Operation Solid 7.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely I'll ask about where the name came from, but we'll go ahead and keep going.
Yeah. And we have My Service Dogs Place. My Service Dogs Place was actually started because I was getting phone calls from the VA and hospitals saying that they had someone there with a service dog and no one that could watch the dog for them. And when that happens, the dogs are taken to the pound and they have 3 to 4 days to get someone to go get the dog out of the pound for them. And if they can't, then the Pet Resource Center, the pound, is going to evaluate the dog based on its age and health. They will either put it down or they will put it up for adoption. And the problem with that is somebody will walk in to adopt a dog. Here's a purebred, German Shepherd, Black Lab, Golden Retriever, and they get it out and start playing with it, ask it to do commands, and of course it immediately complies, and they walk out thinking they've just got a very highly trained dog, not realizing it's someone's service dog. And so I was having calls saying they know, we have a veteran here or we have a first responder here that knows you and wants to know if you can help by getting their dog out because they have no one else. And so the first couple times I just kind of thought it was a fluke, but then when it kept happening, it was like somebody's got to do something, and I guess it's going to be us. So we started that program. And then we also have fave boating expeditions, which is really what started My Warriors Place at the beginning. We just were fave boating, doing boating trips. So we do canoe, kayaking, fishing trips, pleasure boat trips. We also have Everyday Heroes USA, and that is to help with catastrophic relief. We never give money, and it's usually $500 or less that we help them, but maybe we'll pay an electric bill, maybe we'll buy them a battery for their car if there's some kind of hardship due to a tragedy that they've endured.
Gotcha.
And so anyways,
so you got Solid 7, My Service Dogs. It was at Faith Boating? Faith Boating?
F-A-V-E. F-A-V-E.
F-A-V-E. Okay. All right. And then 1, 2, 3. Was there another one?
Yeah, there is. Um, besides the retreat center, we have so the retreat center. There's My Service Dogs Place. There's Fave Boating. There's Operation Solid 7 and Everyday Heroes USA.
Okay, Everyday Hero. Okay, gotcha. And
Ev-
that's the one where you help out if
With
somebody's in a tragedy, right? They just need a
correct.
helping hand or something. Yeah, got it.
Right.
Got
Like we had a firefighter not too long ago whose child was diagnosed with cancer, and they were going to have to drive to New York for some uh, medical attention for their daughter, and they were concerned about the tires on their vehicle. So we
Gotcha.
bought them new tires. Um, so that,
Something when they need a quick there's some event like say tragedy going on, they just need something to cover that. Makes total sense. Okay, awesome. So there's a lot there. You're not just doing. I just knew about the retreat center. Obviously, you're it's how I kind of got to come to know you, but you got a lot going on. So man, we may have to have this a couple part show, but that's okay. That's okay to get the word out there. But let's talk about what brought you here. So, as I mentioned at the start, you are a Gold Star mom. So, and then anyone that goes checks out your site, right, at mywarriorplace.org can see some of the story. But can you kind of just give our viewers and listeners a little bit of the history about Corey and just kind of what brought you here and the events that have you here today, blessing so many other people?
yeah. Well, Corey from a very early age, all he ever wanted to do was serve in the military. And he even knew he wanted to jump out of planes, airborne. He was in Civil Air Patrol. I really thought he would go into the Air Force and fly planes, but no, he wanted to jump out of them. So much so, he practiced jumping out of trees. And
Well,
one day,
that's good. That's a good time to start working on that PLF. I'm a former jump master myself, so toughen up those ankles. That's good.
yeah, yeah. Although one time he did fall wrong and he broke his collarbone. So we joked with him.
That happens in airborne too.
Yeah. We told him he was going to short circuit his career before he ever got it started if he didn't stop. So
Yeah.
he did stop jumping out of trees, but he did go on to basic right out of high school. In fact, he went to summer school so he could graduate a year early. That's how badly he wanted to join the military. And he went straight from basic then to airborne school. And he was planning on going to Ranger school when he got back, but unfortunately, he never made it back from his first deployment in Afghanistan. And of course, as a parent, that that's something that can happen. You just pray that it doesn't. And I guess that's why you're never prepared for it when you get the knock on the door, because you just try to push that out of your mind. But unfortunately, he was killed on September 20th, 2009. But I will say he called me on my birthday, which was 3 weeks, or no, I'm sorry, 3 days before he was killed. And I asked him if it was scary over there, and he said, "Mom, I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty dicey over here. We get shot at every time we leave the fob." And he said, "But it's my time to go. I can only hope that it's serving my country and that I can save others." And he got to die the way he wanted to die. And just miss him every day, but also so proud of him every day.
Yeah. Yeah. What unit was he in when he's over there? Do you
He
remember?
was he was with Fury, the 2508 Fury.
Okay, second fire. Oh, he was 82nd then. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Because I was there in 06 to 07. So, and
Okay.
my son was there 08 to 09. So
Yeah.
it's
Yep. He went
all around that
in.
same thing.
He went in 07. Yeah.
Okay. So he came in, he went in the Army in 07. He came in the or what?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So second 08. All right. Wow. So obviously it was as he said, it was dicey, and it happened to he just happened to fall victim. And I won't go into that. Having been a son of a vet one myself and a father of one, I obviously been around a lot of that, unfortunately. But and I know, and I've seen family members take it, if you could say, well, and others not take it well. And you'd be like, yeah, I'd be the same way. I'd be a basket. I'd be a mess. Right. No one, unless you've walked in those shoes, right. It's
Yeah.
explicitly those shoes. There's no way you can imagine how you're going to handle it. Just like combat, right? Just like people think they can be the very bravest in combat. They
Yeah.
get in there and they realize, wow, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And maybe I'm not as brave as I thought or whatever.
Yeah.
So how'd you do coming out of that? Well, how long with that? What was that process of when you said, I need to start this, my Warriors play or whatever, however you started?
Right. Well, actually, it happened fairly quickly. He was, like I said, he was killed September 20th, 2009. And he actually started coming to me in various ways. And I didn't tell anybody because I really didn't want them to put me in a psych ward. But and I, I'm like, okay, am I just is my imagination running away with me? I mean, what's going on here? But I mean, he just kept making himself more and more present to me until I finally told my mom, and she, said, well, yeah, I guess it's possible. We got to talking about, even the Bible talks about angels talking to man. So
Yeah.
why not? I mean, prior to his death, if you would have said that to me, I would have gone, I don't know. It's never happened to me. But I'm not going to say no. And
Right.
I'm sitting here today telling you, if they want to talk to you, they can. It's and sometimes they do, and people don't, they miss it. They miss
the signal. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm right with you, sister. I've
Yeah.
had it happen in my own house from my own soldiers, and we have seen it go through multiples that I've lost. Yes, it is absolutely true and can be.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to, and the more you attune to it, the more you notice it. And the more you notice it, the more you attune to it. And I mean, it's just, it's that way. But actually, it was not my idea to start a nonprofit. It was his. And I was a life coach, a certified life coach, and certified business coach. So I took my own advice, which I would have given somebody in that situation, which is to go to a therapist that specializes in grief and join a grief group, which I did. And one day on the way to my therapist, I turned the wrong way and immediately knew that I had turned the wrong way. And so I was looking for a place to turn around. And there was this boat up for sale along the road. And I just had that fleeting thought, what a cool boat. Didn't really think more about it. But my son and I had gotten certified as scuba divers when he was 13 and then recertified when he turned 16, because at 13 he could only be a junior scuba diver. But we used to go fishing together, kayaking, canoeing, snorkeling. We'd go out to Beer Can Island that's here close by and look for shark's teeth. And I mean, we just loved anything to do on the water. And so that night, though, he came to me in a dream, and it was one of those very vivid, in color. You hear everything, and he wanted me to buy that boat and take out active duty and veterans and families who had endured the loss of a fallen soldier. And I woke up the next morning and I told my mom about the dream, and we just had a chuckle over me being a boat captain. And so
had you owned a boat before that?
No.
Okay.
No. So that night, again, he came to me in the dream and wanted me to buy the boat. And then the next night it happened again. And the next night it happened again. And I had been diagnosed with PTS. And when you don't get enough sleep, it makes your symptoms worse. So the fifth night, I literally sat up in bed and said, son, please, 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 please do not make me buy this boat. You know why we used to joke about them being called boats. Break out another 1,000.
That's right.
No, I don't want a boat. It's best to have friends that got boat. So the next morning I got up and my mom asked if the dream was still coming, and I said yes. And she said, why don't you drive back out there where the boat was, and maybe it'll be gone and that'll stop the dreams? Or sounds like it's way out of your price range. I only had like $2,500 to spend on a boat, and that doesn't buy me much.
That's not much of a boat right
No,
there. No.
no. And so, because I was willing to do anything, I drove back to where the boat was, and it was still there with just a phone number, no price tag. So I called, and the guy answered, and I started asking him questions about the boat, and he stopped me and he said, "Ma'am, are you calling for your husband?" I said, "No, getting divorced." He said, "Have you ever owned a boat before?" I said, "No." He said, "Have you ever driven a boat before?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Do you mind if I ask then why you're calling about this boat?" And I'm sitting there thinking, what do I tell this guy? Oh,
Yeah. Do I tell him the truth and he thinks I'm a wackadoo? Yep,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I didn't need the guys with the straight jackets to show up for sure. And so I kind of hem-hawed around for a moment, and I finally said, it's a little complicated. Just answer one more question for me. And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "How much do you want for the boat?" And he said, $7,000. And I went, "Oh, thank you very much. It's out of my price range. I'm sorry I wasted your time." And I started to hang up, and he said, "Lady, wait, wait." I said, "Yes." He said, "You never told me why you wanted the boat." And I finally said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you." And I'm thinking, the cell phone I had was a 727 area code, and I was in an 813 area code area. I lived in an 813. I figured I could ditch the phone and be long gone and tell the police that it was stolen or something. I don't know. Some crazy person must have used it. I don't know. But I told him the truth. And he said, "Lady, I'm a veteran. If that's why you want the boat, I'll sell it to you, trailer and all, for $2,000.
Wow.
So
That was meant to be. That was it. Because you determine between you and your mom what the sign's like. Hey, if it's there and if it's in the right price, but otherwise it wasn't meant to be.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I really feel Corey led me to it, because I would have never gone back there if it weren't for the
How
dreams.
big a boat was it?
It was a 23-foot. It was 23-foot deck boat.
Okay.
So it was
For $2,000 trailer and all. Was
mhm,
it running?
oh, perfectly. Just needed a
Wow.
tune-up. That's it.
What a blessing. What
Yeah,
a blessing. Holy cow.
that was mid-October, about 3 weeks after my son had been killed. So I had just been back about a week and a half from Tennessee, where we buried him, when that happened. And I had a friend that was a boat mechanic that looked it over and said, "I just think it needs a tune-up." And he said, "I'll do the work for free." And so we left with the boat, and I did my first boating trip because he taught me how to drive it.
The guy who sold it or your friend?
No, my friend taught
Oh,
me.
okay.
Yeah, my friend taught me how to drive it, and we did my first trip with him as first mate, with several Vietnam veterans, and perfect timing in November to do my first veteran trip. And we got back, and we're all saying our goodbyes, and this great big burly guy came up to me and said, "Can I give you a hug?" I said, "Sure." So he's hugging me, and I could feel him start to shudder. I knew he was starting to tear up, and I said, "Please, please, please don't cry. Please don't cry." I said, if you start crying, I'm going to start crying." He said, "No, you don't understand. This is the first time since I've gotten back from Vietnam that I felt somebody truly cared about my service. And I want to thank you." And he just kept going on and on about how healing the boating trip had been, and how, just couldn't say enough good things. But then he stops and he goes, "But you've got one problem." And I'm like, "You just told me everything was wonderful. What's the problem?" And he goes, you're going to need a bigger boat. So that
just like in Jaws, we
was
need a bigger boat.
yes. Yep. So that's how this all got started. Yep.
Now, did you take them out fishing, or was it just right around the bay? Okay.
No, that one we just did a ride out to Beer Can Island, and then we got
Okay.
out and walked around Beer Can Island looking for shark's teeth and shells, which my son starfish, which my son and I used to love to do. And then we came back, and that was the trip. We saw
Wow.
dolphins that day. It was just really cool. Yeah, really cool trip.
Good deal. Good deal. And then that just built on from there. And that's when the Fave boating got in place, right? And how many boats do you have now?
We have 2 boats. We actually have a 20, let me think about this. We have a 23-foot Carolina skiff bay boat for fishing. And we have a 25-foot Tri-Tune for pleasure boat. And then we have probably 10 to 12 kayaks and 4 or 5 canoes. And
Okay. And that's ones that people staying at the cabins and that kind of stuff can at the cottages can check out and cruise around the river or that kind of thing, right?
well, they can't check out the pontoon or the deck boat. That we have to have licensed captains for, but they can take the canoes and kayaks. But you don't have to be, if you're a veteran or active duty or law enforcement, firefighter, active or retired, or a Gold Star family, and you want to come use our canoes or kayaks, it's free. Just come.
Just come check them out and just go paddle around and
Yeah,
okay.
we ask you to come and get vetted first. So
Right.
that you prove that you are, a veteran or active duty or whatever. And then you can go online to our website and request. We ask a 24-hour notice so we can make sure to have somebody there. We want to know how skilled you are so we can tell you where you can and can't go based on your experience.
Right. Awesome. And then so that kind of led into you went through a number of things. Yeah, but let's talk about the retreat center and the cottages and stuff. Now you've built you have a number of them. I was looking at the site. I mean, it looked roughly about what, maybe 8 to 12. Is that right? If I remember
Cottages?
right.
Yeah, cottages. Yeah.
Of different style, right? 1 bedroom, 3 bedroom, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And can you go a little bit about how those are used and some of the programs. I know you talked about you're a counselor, you're certified in a couple of things, but kind of if people come down there, what that process is, and then what expected of them or what's available for them if a veteran or law enforcement or first responder want to come down and just unwind a little bit at the My Warrior place.
So it's the only thing we actually ask a donation for, and we have set minimum donation amounts that we ask. We have studios that start as little as $30 or $35 a night for a studio. We have 2 RV pads with complete hookups, which are $25 a night. We have 1 bedroom starting at $55 and go. Our most expensive one is $65 a night, and that's right on the Little Manatee River. It's got a huge screened-in porch that overlooks the river. It's overlooks the Court of Flags. It's fabulous. Everybody loves that one. We have some 2 bedrooms that start at $70 a night, and then our most expensive donation amount is $125 for our 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
That would be like maybe a family would come in or something like that.
Or 6. We've had 6 active duty guys because we can put the beds. Each room has 2 twins, so we can push them together to make kings, or we can separate them into twins. So we've had 6 active duty guys from various bases across the country that will come for a 3-day weekend. And when you're splitting $125 a night between 6 people, you've got a full kitchen and a full living room and dining room area. I mean, it makes it very cost effective. So
and they can stay there for a certain amount of time, right? They can
up to 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Now I noticed, I remember we talked before, I noticed the website still has like 15 plus nights, but you guys don't offer that, right? It's just up to 2 weeks max.
No, we do offer that, but you're going to pay a little more if
Right.
you need more than 2 weeks. So when you go
Okay.
15 plus, it has to be approved by our board, because one of the problems we had was people would come and they just didn't want to leave. And if they don't
Yeah.
leave, then nobody else can and experience it. So we said, you know what? Most people, if they're going to go on vacation, it's usually 2 weeks or less. So we said,
Right.
okay, we're going to do 2 weeks. There are times and there are circumstances where people need more than 2 weeks. Like right now, we have a couple that their house is being rebuilt due to Ian, and
Right.
they needed to stay longer than just 2 weeks. And otherwise, they'd be in a hotel. So,
Right.
you know, staying with us is way cheaper than a hotel, and it's and the environment is way better for them. So they're with us probably, when it's all said and done, they're going to be have been with us for probably 90 days. Um,
Okay.
so there are, if it's a good reason,
Case by case. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a case by case. If it's a good reason and not just because you want to stay longer, then yes, we can usually work with you.
Now this is located roughly what, 40, 30, 45 minutes south of Tampa, Tampa Airport. Is that like the place to fly
Yeah,
into, or
yeah. Well,
if they fly in
they can fly into
Sarasota?
Sarasota. Yeah, Sarasota Airport or the Tampa Airport, either one. You're probably somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes away, depending on traffic. Yeah.
Okay. So someone comes down there. What's available? Is there any kind of other programs they have to go to? Can they just hang out like a regular hotel?
Yeah.
And if not, and if there are programs, like what kind of things are available? I know they have the canoes and kayaks and stuff, but
Right. Well, yes. So it is just like renting an Airbnb. You are
gotcha.
on your own when you're there. Um, but because it is specifically for veterans, military, law enforcement, firefighter, Gold Star families, people get to know each other very quickly. It's not unusual to find people that never knew each other until they got there. Now they're sitting around the fire pit at night. Maybe they're, doing s'mores, or they're telling stories, or they're, one family will invite everybody over and they'll do a potluck, or, I mean, they're just, it's
Right.
amazing how it just happens. We do have Operation Solid 7, which is our mental health. We have a 3-day, 3-night program that's called Forever a Warrior. And we actually will bring in, and we don't pay for them to get to us or get home, but once they get to us, everything's free. So their stay is free, their food is taken care of, the materials for the course are covered, and it's 3-day, 3-night, just chocked full of tools, techniques, because it's not a one size fits all.
Right. Right.
For healing, breath work or yoga may work for one person, but not for somebody else. Somebody else may be EMDR. Somebody else may be hypnosis. So we kind of give them a smattering, I guess, of the different techniques.
Of options of what they could try and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so they actually will try different techniques while they're with us. And that then they
So
can.
that's a structured program. You walk them through. Do you kind of introduce them to all these techniques and find, so they can kind of find one that fits, or maybe a couple that fit?
Yes.
And it just gives them kind of a taste of it. And it's like, oh, okay, I can go back home and continue doing this or something.
Yeah. And then we also talk about personality styles and communication styles, and how the different personalities take in information and store information differently. We talk about love languages. We talk about tears and the myths. I mean, so many are taught at a very young age, big boys don't cry.
Right.
And that's not true. I mean, that's
Actually, the bigger we get, the more we cry. I found that the older we get, the more we cry. But I've talked about that at length on the show. But yeah,
Yeah. And
awesome.
there's
Okay, so that's outside of just someone coming to stay. That's
right.
you run that certain times a year
Yeah.
and that kind of thing.
Well, we do it every so often when we've got the funding to do it. I would love to do it more than we do, but it all depends on funding because, of course, we're covering everything. So we've got to have the funds to be able to put somebody through it, and not just one person, but anywhere between 8 and 10 at a time through it.
Right.
Um, we also talk about, the tears. There's 3 different kinds of tears and the chemical makeup behind them. And I mean, we talk about, some people are criers by nature and some are by nurture. And so, we talk about all of this and help them to understand better. Because I've had people say to me, I can't cry, or I've been accused of not caring because I didn't cry. And
Right.
that weighs heavily on them. And it's maybe by nature, they're not a crier, or maybe by nurture, they were taught how to not cry. It doesn't
Right.
mean they don't care. It doesn't mean that they are not grieving their losses any more than somebody who's bawling their eyes out. So, I mean, these are things, education, knowledge is power. And so
Right. Right.
basically, we're giving them knowledge on a bunch of different topics that are going to help them.
Right.
And
So
also,
go
it,
ahead.
it's also perception, how you perceive things. And we even have exercises that they do where they actually don't see what they're reading, or they don't see a picture that's right there in front of them. And we talk about how the brain can wipe things out, or like not
Right.
allow you to see or hear things. And so,
So you're I'll go back a little bit. So you mentioned funds and funding. How do you get your funding, and where I want to make sure we hit on this before it goes too long, so our listener viewers can know how can they donate and help out My Warriors Place? What are options out there for them to do that?
well, our 2 biggest needs are dollars and volunteers. So for
Okay.
people that live close and want to come and physically volunteer, um, love to have them. Uh, there are some things that can be done by people from home anywhere in the country as long as they have a computer. So, I mean, if they're good at social media, if they're good at doing research for us, if they're grant writers, I mean, all those things don't have to be here where we're
Right.
at to be able to help. So those are things. If they have contacts that they think could lead us to funding, grant money, whatever, again, that's a huge help to us. Um,
Right.
we we do different kinds of fundraisers, whether it be raffles, events, um, and then just people donating $5, $10, $20.
And they can do that on mywarriorsplace.org, right?
Yep. Yep. They can go to our website under how you can help, and one of them's make a donation, and they
Right.
can make a donation right there online. So, yep.
Okay. Now you mentioned earlier you're a certified life coach. I know when we talked before, you're actually certified across a number of things.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people you have that volunteer. You probably have people that volunteer that are also, therapists or some level of that can help out, or maybe just good listeners or whatever. How do you engage? Let's say people come down there and they stay for a week or 2 weeks. They're not part of the Solid 7 program, but just there. Do you come over and meet them? Do they come by and strike up a conversation? And are you able to counsel people and engage with them, or one of your staff to try to maybe they thought they were just coming to hang out and they realized that they have some there's some resources between you and some other folks that can help them.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times, they will say something to somebody. And of course, if I'm not on property, I'm usually just a phone call away. We also have various therapists that are also just a phone call away, or they'll do Zoom and they'll do it for free. So, you know, it's mainly listening and watching body language a lot of times and just asking the questions, would you like to
just
talk
talking to them.
would you like
Yeah.
to talk to somebody? Could you, it's amazing. Sometimes just you start out the conversation, where they will say, "Oh, this is a lovely place," or, you know, "This has just been a great place for me to come." And then you just start talking, and then all of a sudden they're crying, or you can tell by their body language that they're hurting. And, to be able just to say, "Do you need someone to talk to a little more in detail about this? I can tell you're hurting." And
Right.
just acknowledging that can be huge for them.
If I could ask you, do you have any that feel like they don't want to, they feel like you've already had enough of a burden with the loss of Corey that they feel bad or guilty and don't want to bother you? Because they're, and I'll put it in this scenario, right? They came back, right? Do you have any that say, don't feel worthy to even talk to you, or don't they feel like they want to burden you with their issues when they
It's
came
not
back?
so much that they are afraid to burden me. I've had them say they were afraid that I would hate them because they made it back and my son didn't.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's the farthest thing from the truth. In fact, I encourage those that make it back to seek out the families of their fallen comrades and reach out to them, because I always caution them. I always say, now, unless you don't want to be adopted, because that's what's going to happen, that family, you've got stories of when you guys served together that the family knows nothing about. And usually
Right.
they're hysterical,
Yeah.
hysterical. But the family has stories that you've never heard.
From
Uh,
before they came into service,
Service, yeah.
growing up and that kind of
And
stuff. Yeah.
so you will share these stories and just um, laugh together. You will cry together, knowing that someone other than you is remembering your loved one, and that still cares about them, and it's hurting just like you are. I mean, that it just, like I said, you will be adopted by the family.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I could see it. So it's, I mean, you mentioned earlier, it's like an Airbnb, but it's kind of Airbnb plus, right?
Yeah.
Because they can come down there and go to the grocery store, hit Publix and stock up at their kitchen and just hang out and do whatever they do. Or they have the ability to walk over, sit around a fire, go on a kayak,
Does she?
whatever, right? Talk to
Yeah.
somebody, go fishing, right,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
So there are opportunities to do other things and come and go. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's, so now you've been operating the lodges, cottages for how long now? How long has that been up and running?
Since 2012, so 11
Okay. So
years.
that's 11 years.
Yeah.
You've probably seen a lot come and go
Yeah.
of every flavor, size,
Yeah.
experience, background, everything. Is there anything in those 11 years of, I mean, obviously you've worked with people on the boats and stuff, but when you talk about someone being there for a number of days, up to 2 weeks or more, is there any one story, or is there any thread of a stories that just stand out to you that were most meaningful to you, or that just like is something where you're going, I'll never forget this?
Right. Oh, there's several. One of them I can think about actually was, we had a family come down from Georgia, and the husband had been he was sole survivor of a Humvee that had rolled over a IED, and had to learn to walk again, had to learn to talk again. Had a service dog, but his family had somehow heard about us. He severe PTS, and so his wife actually contacted us about booking a week to come down, and then she wanted to have us take them out on a fishing trip while they were there. And so we put that all together. They came down, they went out fishing. We actually made sure that the captain, who was also a veteran, had a bad accident, had to learn to walk again, had to learn to talk again, so he could relate to this veteran. And as they were out there fishing, they were catching fish left and right, and the girls were having a blast. And the husband was talking to the captain, and they were catching fish. And the wife was sitting over in a corner getting just more distant, angry almost. And the first mate, who was also a veteran and was also a chaplain, she didn't know that, but he kept going over and asking her, "Are you okay?" Because he could tell by her body language that she was getting upset. And
Right.
she just kept saying, "Yes, everything's fine. Everything's fine."
Ooh, that's any man knows that's the red flag right there.
Yeah, yeah. And so about the third or fourth time he asked her, she said, "I told you I'm fine." And so he backed off and let it go. And when they got back to the dock, she jumped off the boat and ran over to where one of our gazebos was, and sat down and just started crying. And Tom jumped off the boat and went over there, and he said, "Look, you know I'm a veteran, but you don't know I'm a chaplain, and I know fine, and this isn't it. What's going on?" He said, "Did you not enjoy it?" She said, "No, she said, "You don't understand. It was wonderful out there, but I haven't heard my husband laugh in over 5 years. And I don't know what you did out there, but I haven't been able to do it. And I'm mad at myself because I haven't been able to get him to laugh. And I also don't want it to stop. I want to hear him laugh." And so Tom was able to talk her through it. He said, "It's not us." He said, it's being out on the water. It's connecting the right people together. It's a lot of different things." And he said, "But this is the beginning of healing for him, and you're going to start seeing him laugh now back home." And so they now come twice a year for a week. This is their, about every 6 months, this is their healing time
Wow.
to heal and also come together as a family more and more. And the last time they were down, which was about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 months ago, she came over to the office and she said, "You're not going to believe this, but his service dog is having a meltdown." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "This is the first time he's ever left the dog in the house. He's out fishing with the girls on the dock, and the dog is going nuts because the dog is not with him."
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's it's it's the healing place, it's the healing waters, it's the healing that happens when you put the right people together and you've got this camaraderie that also happens because you've all been through some of the same kind of experiences.
Right. Right. I mean, that's you know, as we know, as history is proven to us, and a lot of experts have talked about, right? That's where the healing is, right? The healing is not in the drugs. The healing is not in just trying to go back and ignore it all happened and get back with life. It is talking through it, um, and usually with people that that understand where you've been and know, right? You know, yes, obviously, my belief, right, is a trained and school trained and you know therapist, whatever is great, but when it's a combat vet, and being a retired first sergeant as myself, I've dealt with enough of them. I'll take a combat vet over a master's degree therapist any day to sit down and talk to another combat vet. I mean, it's just, you know, it is, they know the pains, they know the anxieties, they know the guilt and everything else, and can just let them work through it. And and it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing when you're bringing these people together. And they don't have to be combat vets, right? They can be law enforcement, which go through their own levels of adrenaline and stuff and have their own issues, or firefighters and everything like that. It's people that just provide selfless service to this country, whether it's the local community or a country on the world stage.
Yeah, and they're having to see things that the normal person isn't. I mean, they're not, a law enforcement officer, maybe he wasn't able to save that drowning child, and now he's driving past that house where that child drowned every day, and he's reminded of it every day. Or the firefighter who wasn't able to get the child or the family or even the pets out of the house, and they died, and it's a lot of different.
Or either one of them lost a cohort in the job, right? Whether law enforcement or fire, and lost a crew member, a friend, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And they have guilt. They have survivor's guilt too.
Yes, they do. And it's one of those jobs where, because of the kind of job it is, whether you're in the military, law enforcement, or firefighter, you are family. You didn't just lose a coworker, you lost a family member. And I know, in talking to those that were with Corey when he was killed, my first thought when I heard he was dead is, oh my God, he died in this godforsaken place without family around, until I got to meet and talk to some of those that were with him when he died. And when I see the tears in their eyes, or I see their body language I'm like, oh my God, he died with family with him. It just wasn't by blood. I call it bond family, and he died with his bond family.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. And like I say, you have a number of things I know we're not going to be able to get a chance to get into. So I'm definitely going to have you back on. We're definitely going to have to do another show, because I do want to talk a lot about my service dogs place.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the boating stuff some more. We talked about Op 7 and Everyday Heroes, because being both, Toby's not here with me tonight. Toby and I both we run in enough circles. He's been executive director of a couple, veteran-based nonprofits himself, that, we know enough people that could benefit from a number of your organizations. Our good friend, Chuck Ziegenfuss, runs Hero Labradors, right? So this is a guy who's so tied in with the service dog industry. He raises and breeds labs for free and donates them to training centers, so they get given to veterans for free. And, he has bred over 100 pure lab pups just for that. And that's his whole, after he retired, that's his whole nonprofit, is just breeding and raising Labradors to get them to training facilities to, give service dogs and not charge a vet anything. So, I mean, there's just a lot of folks in our circles that I think could benefit and get to know about you. I know some right in the Tampa area, obviously with MacDill and everything, and in the Southern Command. I mean, there's a lot of folks in there that I know that I think it'd be good for them to know about your place and what you do, not only to come partake, but also maybe to come help and volunteer.
Yeah, it's amazing how many come, and they come out to volunteer one day and then they're back, because they're like, oh my God, this place gives me purpose. It's, it's more than just volunteering.
It's people that are for something bigger than themselves, right? That's the way they're bred or trained, or however you want to say it, via the military or law enforcement, whatever they've done, right? It's always about bigger than themselves. And this is for those that have retired, gotten out, or just whatever. I'm sure it provides them a connection to feel like they're giving back.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And they're still part of their community.
And not only that, but also being able to talk about it. We get back to the talking, being able to talk with others. And
wow, this is awesome. I'm so glad that my wife found you, because she's the one that found you. And that we were able to get you on tonight. Like I said, I definitely want to have you back on again, Kelly. I want to focus on some of your other programs.
That'd be awesome.
And definitely want to do that, and just get the word out there for that. We'll find you we'll find us another time to have you on. And I know we went a little bit long tonight, again, climbing up on an hour, but I think I'd maybe promised you 30 to 40 minutes, but there's just so much that, and I'm sure there's a ton more stories just about the retreats and the cottages that you could share.
Yes.
I mean, but this gets the word out there. People can see going along the bottom on the ticker. We have the website up. They can definitely check out mywarriorplace.org. Like you said, they can donate there. they can donate their time, skills, or abilities. You would be appreciative of all that, I know.
Yeah.
Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to let our listeners and viewers know? If there's any topic or something you want to make sure you just hit on or highlight that I didn't ask about?
No, not really. I mean, gosh, I could talk for a lot longer on just different programs we have and different experiences. But no, I think we covered quite a bit in this episode. So we're good.
We did. And we have talked before, and you and I both, we both can talk quite a bit. We were going quite a bit earlier. So, no, that's great. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much for being on and joining us tonight. And I look forward to having you on again. And I hope this show gets out there and people learn. And if anything else, I hope they donate because this is a cause that, I mean, I think you've already been able to reflect and expound on that. Any money they give or services or talents are definitely benefiting. There's no doubt that's going right to the veterans and law enforcement and just patriotic people that have given to our country.
Yeah. So
thank you so much. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in here at Stu and the Nun. Be sure and stay tuned into our Facebook page, Twitters, all of our socials. We'll, as you know, we do multiple shows a week that get posted, and we hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you again, Kelly, so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nun Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenun.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BootHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.